Hey there folks, I'm here in Cincinnati, Ohio, Norwood, Ohio actually, to be correct, to be precise, but yeah, it's a pretty special place, and I'm a huge ancient history enthusiast, and I've always been into ancient history. And when I was younger, I visit my grandmother in Columbus, Ohio, and there's this mound right near her house. And I've been visiting there for as long as I can remember. And then I remember like one time, I was visiting there since I was like a baby practically. And then one time, I went up and I actually read the sign, and it talked about like how these people built these mounds, over 2,000 years ago. And I'm like, so there are 2,000-year-old remains in the mound? I was completely shocked, like thinking about just how long ago that was. And, and it's still that way for me. Thinking about these archaeological features built over 2,000 years ago, and just how important they are and significant they are. It's such a cool place. And this is Norwood Mound, as it's known, in the city of Norwood, Ohio, a northern suburb of Cincinnati, right near Cincinnati. This is supposedly the highest point in the city of Norwood. You got those water towers there called Water Tower Park, and a beautiful view out. You can see the whole panorama of the city. This mound is quite significant because, just for the incredible archaeological feature it is, but also for the fact that it wasn't destroyed. Because very sadly, around 90% of all mounds and earthworks supposedly in the Midwest have been destroyed. Which I heard originally there was about 1 million mounds out there, and now there's like 100,000. And don't get me wrong, 100,000 is no small number, but when you think about that, 1 million to 100,000, 9 out of 10 mounds have been completely destroyed, and many more, I'd say even most of the remaining earthworks today have been in some way altered, many significantly altered. This mound supposedly was once higher. I think it's around 15 feet now. I've heard like 13 and a half feet. I've heard 15 feet, yeah, so somewhere around there. And it's a really cool the main mound building groups that you have here in the Midwest, and specifically Ohio, we're here in the southwestern Ohio, are the Adena Culture, which is the first mound building group that rises around 1,000 to 800 BC, and then ends around AD 1 to AD 100. So this is really like a BC mound building group. Most Adena mounds were built between about 500 BC and 100 BC. So most of them were built in the BC period. You have Grave Creek Mound in West Virginia. I think that's like 300 BC. And that's one of the biggest ones. I've been there. It's a really amazing place. And then you have the Hopewell Culture, which rises around 200 BC and goes to about 500 AD. So you have some overlap. These mound building groups are no way, it's not like they evolve into the next group, through evolution of technique or mound building or lifestyle or any such. You have basically these migratory patterns. So you have different groups of Native Americans, cultures migrating to different areas, from the south often. And you have mound building groups all the way down to Florida. They're all over. Down in Florida, I've seen some incredible Native American mounds just like this, many huge ones, and earthworks as well. And so these mound building groups are certainly not just unique to this area by any means. They're really all over the eastern and midwestern U.S. and even into southern Ontario and Manitoba, but pretty significant. And so you have this Hopewell Culture rise. Hopewell Culture probably, is responsible for, what many would consider the most significant earthworks of all, just in terms of the intricacy. And I've been to many Hopewell sites. Like the Newark Earthworks are probably my favorite earthwork site of all, and they have these giant, you can look up pictures of the Newark Earthworks, just 30 miles east of Columbus, and it's unbelievable. You have these things called the Octagon Earthworks, so it's like a giant, like square mile sized octagon. I don't know exactly how big it is. Might not be a square mile, but they're huge. And then there's like this thing called the Great Circle, which is it's like the circular shaped earthwork with a ditch around it. And these numbers are just insane. It's 1,200 feet across the circle, so a quarter of a mile across the circle, and it's only 18 inches off from being a perfect circle. If I don't understand with not modern, with ancient measuring technology, how they were able to get such a precise circle. It is unbelievable, these architectural feats. And of course, this is just a round mound. You have earthworks, you have Serpent Mound, and which is called a kind of effigy mound. Effigy mounds are mounds shaped like a person or animal. So Serpent Mound being, the most famous probably of all here in Ohio, and shaped like a giant serpent, 1/4 mile long. There's just some incredible mounds, and they really should be a lot more famous than they are. Several, Serpent Mound included, and the Newark Earthworks have been nominated for World Heritage Sites, and then Poverty Point in Louisiana, which is one of the oldest mound sites from like 1600 BC, is a World Heritage Site, and Cahokia, just east of St. Louis, Missouri, actually in Illinois, is also a World Heritage Site. So they've thankfully gotten some recognition for their incredible historical and archaeological features, but there's a lot more recognition certainly, and it should be a lot more famous as tourist destinations, because I did a whole mounds trip a couple years ago before COVID, and it was one of the most special trips I've ever taken, going and seeing these ancient mounds all over the Midwest. Just incredible. And I hope to visit a lot more. Anyways, as I was saying, the Fort Ancient is the last mound group that I forgot to mention, which is about 900 AD to 1500 AD. Really, up until the time of European settlement, but most of their mounds are constructed around 1000 to 1200 AD. And that's a group that is now believed to be responsible for the Serpent Mound. It's not really sure who built Serpent Mound, because there have been conflicting results based on, carbon dating and also artifacts found there. There's several other mounds in the area, but anyways, it's a whole, one of the fun things about archaeology and learning about these ancient sites is that there's so much that we don't know, and really so much that we will almost certainly never know, because these people, Adena, Hopewell, Fort Ancient, are all names that were given by modern settlers, modern archaeologists. We don't know what these people called themselves. We don't know what they were thinking when they constructed, these incredible earthworks. We have some ideas, maybe some solstice observations in the Newark Earthworks, maybe signals to the gods when you have these giant effigy mounds, but it's just, these sites are incredible. And this mound obviously isn't an intricate shape or anything. We don't really know what this mound is for, because this is actually one of the very few mounds in the Cincinnati area period remaining. There used to be probably, in Hamilton County alone, probably hundreds and hundreds, maybe thousands of mounds. Almost certainly thousands of mounds. Now there are much less remaining, and it's such an urban area. It's really remarkable to have a mound not only preserved so well. It's believed to have gone down in height quite a bit. Obviously, you can imagine with over 2,000 years or whatever it's been with erosion and stuff, this mound has obviously changed shape a little bit, but it's remarkably well preserved. And it's not really known who built it, because it's never been excavated, which is very interesting, and I'll talk to that just afterwards. But it's never been excavated. Other mounds in the area have been excavated, but they don't know who built it. But based on the shape and location, it's believed to possibly be Adena, which is responsible for a lot of the earthworks here in Hamilton County. That's the first mound building group that we mentioned. And if this isn't Adena Mound, then it's likely from the BC era, maybe somewhere in the range of 500 to 100 BC. So this is, certainly over 1,000 years old, and quite easily over 2,000 years old. And, only excavation will tell. My hope is that someday maybe they can create some sort of scanning technology that'll be able to sort of do like an X-ray through the mound, and you can see what's inside, because it's really interesting when you take like the excavation versus preservation aspects of it. And of course, the people who built these mounds, this could easily be a grave. We don't know if there are burials inside, but there's been belief that it was used for Adena smoke signaling. Like they would light fires on top and use it like, smoke signaling to the gods, because this is such a high point. It would be a perfect location for that. But, it often comes into conflict when you have between archaeologists and often native groups, or just like other beliefs that, because when you excavate a mound, you have to obviously cut into it, take it apart if you excavate the whole thing. And then of course, often they'll restore the mound after, sometimes they won't. But, nowadays when you excavate a mound, they'll always restore it. And they've lately been restoring earthworks. And if a mound's been completely destroyed, I'm all for restoring it. Some people say, you're just reconstructing it. It's not really original. I would rather have, a partially reconstructed, restored mound than no mound at all. But, if you have to restore it, and then you have to excavate it and restore it when you could just not destroy it in the first place, it's a very interesting sort of contrast. Many of the native groups today unfortunately have they've been displaced. A lot of groups in Oklahoma were originally displaced from Ohio and the Midwest, but so unfortunately many people, because of all this displacement, can't really claim heritage from the groups who built these mounds. So it's it's often, a lot of it's been erased from history, which is really sad. But some native people can trace their ancestry to to the people who built these mounds. And obviously, they're often not for, destroying them, to excavate them. So it's really interesting. And like I said, my hope maybe is to somehow create like an X-ray device so we can see maybe some of the artifacts, determine the culture who built the mound without having to sort of take apart the whole thing and then sort of reconstruct it, which, can be really damaging to the mound and just, isn't proper. I mean, think about it. You're taking someone's burial. These are graveyards. These are often, people's final resting places. I mean, you wouldn't take someone's grave, dig it up, look through it, sift through the artifacts, take out the rings, take out the valuables, and then put it back together. I mean, that's what grave diggers do. And sadly, so many of these mounds have been destroyed. It's really quite sad. But thankfully, those that remain, most of them at least, some of them are on private property with uncertain futures, but most of them, thankfully, have been preserved and protected. And I think most of the mounds that remain, unfortunately, some of them are very, many of them have been destroyed. Most of them, sadly, have been destroyed. But there are, still, like I said, like 100,000 incredible archaeological earthworks out there. I mean, you won't believe what you can find. If you just, Google search all these incredible mound sites, Newark Earthworks, Serpent Mound, effigy mounds of, Wisconsin, Iowa, Effigy Mounds National Monument, Hopewell Culture National Historical Park, which is Chillicothe, Ohio. Just incredible sites that you would never believe. And I'm really glad to be able to see these sites and at least have some of them preserved here. And again, like I said, in such an urban setting, I don't know which has done more damage, urban development or farming, because both of them require leveling these features. But thankfully, someone preserved this site. And again, in such an urban area, it is almost unheard of, because there were lots of mounds and earthworks in downtown Cincinnati, and now Mound Street. It's the only remnant of the old mounds. There's no mounds remaining anymore, just the name Mound Street. So almost all of them have been destroyed in these urban areas. To see a mound actually preserved like this is both very rare and incredibly valuable. So we can't take these sites for granted. This is an ancient site, likely older than like the Colosseum in Rome, which is pretty crazy to think about and pretty incredible. So I'm very pleased that this has been preserved. And there's a lot more to this part of the globe, this part of the country, than anyone people would think at first. Often people are taught that the history starts with colonization. No, there's a lot of history here before colonization, a heck of a lot. And that's the history that interests me most, is this native history and these incredible earthwork and mound sites. I mean, you should see some of the other sites, like just amazing places. All right, enjoy, folks. Thanks for watching. Really appreciate it. Have a good one.